When we talk about mental health and why people need therapy, we often talk about like the big kind of stereotypes: depression, anxiety, relationship issues, addiction, stuff like that. Like, if you're dealing with those things, you need to go to therapy. But actually, there's another thing that drives people to therapy that we don't often talk about. In fact, I've never seen a training for therapists about this thing. I've never seen social media content for people specializing on this thing. I've literally never seen it. But in my nearly 20 years of practicing as a psychotherapist, this one thing is one of the most critical reasons that people come into therapy, and it shows up a lot in people's lives. And that thing is regret. Specifically, when we go down the wrong life path and realize somewhere along that path, we've made a wrong turn along the journey. And there are so many social forces that make those sorts of things hard to talk about, make those sorts of things challenging, and people experience judgment and criticism. But these are the things that people need to be able to sort out. And what I hope to accomplish this week is I want to normalize a conversation about regret. I want to normalize a conversation about struggle. I want to normalize a conversation about those hard things that we often struggle with so that people can get help and deal with these regrets, because a lot of us have them more than I think are willing to talk about it. And I want to be able to make sure we open up a space where people feel safe to talk about it. So welcome back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Of course, I'm your host, Elliott Connie. So I'm going to tell you a quick story about a friend of mine, this woman that I used to be very, very close with. So she was in college and was a really amazing student, was really an advanced thinker, still is, and was on her way to just great, amazing things. And one of those things was she was a wonderful musician. She played an instrument, was going into therapy. I mean, this woman was going to set the world on fire. And she meets this guy, and they decide to get married. And in her head, and she literally told me this out of her own mouth, the man you choose is irrelevant. She actually thought that it doesn't matter who I pick to be my partner. These things are going to be true. I'm going to be going on to do these great things no matter what. And quickly realized that this guy wasn't kind of her dream guy. This wasn't the guy that kind of was that dream guy. And his nonsense, and I won't get into some of the stuff he did, but his nonsense really got in her way. And fast forward a few years, and she had a job she didn't love, and she had multiple kids by this person, and she loved her kids and was an amazing mom, but she wasn't the person who grew up I always want to have kids. She was I want to grow up and change the world. And now she's being the soccer mom, and it really impacted her mental health. It really, really messed with her. In fact, she made a decision that so when she had a couple of kids, she had the third kid. And I said, why'd you have the third kid if you knew you were unhappy? And she said, I just figured, why not, right? Now, again, I want to stress, amazing mom. But I want to also stress that wasn't the life she dreamt of when she was a kid. When she did open her mouth to talk about it to people around her, they all said, but you live in such a nice neighborhood and you seem to have such a great life. Dream pursuit is isolating because most of the time people don't understand why you're doing what you're doing. Most people don't pursue their dreams. They just live the normal kind of status quo life. And I want to advocate for all of you to grind, and if you find yourself down the wrong path, if you find yourself realizing that this is not the life that I want to lead, if you find yourself thinking, I don't want to be in the space where I am, then make a change. She ultimately did make a change. So proud of her. She's so amazing. And she has gone on to do great things. And it was hard. It was hard to pivot in the middle of that and go off and start to pursue your dreams. But you cannot be a happy, healthy person if you're not being the person that you're kind of designed to be. If you're not being the person that allows you to pursue your dreams, if you're not being the person that actively goes after the things that you want, You cannot be the best version of yourself unless you do those things. So let's normalize being okay with doing the things that you want to do, even if people don't understand. When we're talking about a topic on like how we went down the wrong path, the wrong life path to be specific, it begs the question, like, why do we do that? Like, why do we make decisions that don't feel right for us, that ultimately aren't right for us? Not only why do we make the decision, but why do we stick to the decision? Well, I will tell you, in my work with clients for all these years, so many people made decisions based upon pleasing someone else rather than being congruent to themselves and who they are. It's more common than not. Like, you make the decision because I don't want to upset mom and dad. You make the decision because you don't want to throw off the family dynamics. I'm thinking of a family that I worked with at one point, and the family was a very, very close-knit family. Super close-knit family. My client goes off to college and meets a woman. And they start dating, have a very serious relationship. My client is from North Texas, but this woman is from the Northeast, let's say Vermont. And he went to Vermont to visit her and fell in love. If you've ever been to that part of the country, it is beautiful, mountainous, green, hilly, seasonal. I mean, it is amazing, that part of the country. New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, like all that stuff. Like Massachusetts is great, but you get north of Massachusetts and it's amazing. And he wanted to live there. He wanted to move there with the wife, with his girlfriend, eventually his wife. And his parents went nuts because he would be breaking the family trend and he would be leaving the cocoon of the family. And they were not happy and were not afraid to tell him so. So thus he didn't. By the time he came to see me, he was miserable, absolutely miserable living in Texas. And the therapy became about, how do you start making decisions on your own instead of living with people? And that's what happens. Like, we make these decisions, and today I want to talk about, like, how do we stop doing that? Why do we do it? And how do we stop doing it? So, sometimes it's hard telling these stories that have happened in my clinical practice because I obviously have to withhold certain details. Like, there's so much I want to say, but I can't. There's so much I want to, like, I just want to divulge so much more, but I just can't do it for, ethical HIPAA reasons. But you still heard enough in that story. That client ended up moving away with his now wife. They'd been married for a few years by the time he came and saw me. But it's crazy how often we make decisions because, like, we don't want to upset the people around us. And look, human beings, not all of us, but most of us, by and large, are selfish. The parents weren't thinking about what was best for their child. They were thinking about what was best for them and how much they would miss their child, how much they would miss their grandchildren if the child went off and had kids, how much they would miss the kiddo being around them. That's what they were thinking. They might have been thinking about what was best for the kid, and they might have been thinking, we don't want him to move away because it'll be hard for him. But they're forgetting how important it is that people are allowed to make their own autonomous decisions, including making mistakes, because that's a part of the journey. That's a part of life. That's a part of the process. And you can't limit kids in that way. You can't limit your adult kids in that way. Like, people have to be able to choose. Maybe he needed to go to Vermont, realized he hated it, and then move back. But he's got to feel like he can make his own decisions and go. And the biggest reason why we do this, we make these decisions and we stick with them, because oftentimes sticking with them is easier than admitting I was wrong and I made a mistake. And I think we have to humble ourselves and be okay with saying, wow, I moved to Vermont and that didn't work out. I'm going to move back to Texas, or vice versa. We got to be okay with saying, I went down the wrong path and now I have to undo it because this isn't working. Because the alternative is you're going to be miserable. And then you're not good for anybody. You're not good for yourself. You're not good to your loved ones. You're not good. You're like, there's nothing good that comes out of you feeling that sense of dread, or there's nothing good that comes out of you feeling that sense of, like, I've made a mistake and now I just have to live with it. And now you're moody and you're anxious and you're upset and you're snappy and you're just not a good version of yourself. So let's work on that. Like, if you are not living the life that you hope to, if you just feel like you're down the wrong path, like, you only get one of these. Like, it's not like you get a do-over. Like, this is it. This is your one shot. So make sure you spend it doing the things that bring you joy, bring you peace, and confirm that you're living a life that is designed for you and by you, because it's the only opportunity that you have to be really, really the best version of yourself. I myself am not immune to this. There was once a time in my life where I was heading down a particular path, and I knew that I had to make a change. I knew that I had to make a pivot. It wasn't like I was, running around with gang members, and if I hadn't changed my life, I'd be murdering people. It wasn't quite that, with the word like dangerous or, dramatic. But it was a big deal. It did end up being like this really small thing that I did. It made a huge difference. And it's funny, like just before I made this video, I was scrolling on social media, just kind of doom scrolling. And I saw a friend of mine, an actress by the name of Tasha Smith. She was being interviewed, and she said, everybody knows what they should be doing. And the interviewer said, well, how could they find out? And she said, just sit and close your eyes and see what you dream about. And when I saw that, I was just like, whoa, because that's very, very true for me. That was very true for me. And there was a moment in my life where I realized like I'm in the wrong place. And I asked myself, 17 years old, I asked myself, where should I be? And I kind of started paying attention to the tea leaves, if you will. I didn't have a moment where I just like closed my eyes, see what I was dreaming about. But there was like a period of my life where I just kind of watched what was happening around me. I kind of looked around and I was like, I got it. Like, I got it. These are the things that are giving me clues on this is what I want to do. I'm going to tell you exactly what it was, and maybe it'll help you. So I'm going to share it with you today. So, quick backstory. When I was a kid, I loved the ocean. Still do. It's like my favorite thing ever. I absolutely love the ocean. I love all about it. I remember as a kid, we took a field trip to the New England Aquarium right in Boston. I grew up outside of Boston, and we took a field trip to the New England Aquarium, and it was amazing. I just loved it. I remember going to the dolphin show, and it was like a highlight of my life. Later on in high school, we took a field trip on a whale watch. Like, it was just epic. So when I got to college and they said, what's your major? I said, I want to major in marine biology. I wasn't thinking about like what career I could have. I just thought about what would be a thing I could study for the next 4 years. And what I thought would be 4 years ended up being a bit more. But what could I study for the next 4 years and enjoy it? And of course, marine biology was the first thing on my mind. And then I started taking the classes, and in order to be a marine biology major, I had to take a ton of labs, and I had to take a lot of math. Like, these things were not my strength. Like, I just wanted to study marine life. But the foundational courses, the math courses, and the laboratory courses, and the science courses, like, I was miserable. And I remember one day sitting in the class and looking around and realizing, like, I'm not like the people around me, and I don't want the life that you get when you stay in this process. So I kind of made up my mind I'm going to change my major. I didn't know to what, I didn't know when, but I just knew I don't want to do this marine biology thing. It doesn't seem to be fitting me. And shortly thereafter, my mother had a massive mental health crisis. I've talked about it a ton. I'm not going to go deep into it here. But my mother had a massive mental health crisis, and kind of going through that process, I realized I want to study people and healing and humans. As a result of my mother's crisis, we moved to Texas. I transferred to a school in Texas. And when I got time to change my major, when I had to choose my major at this new school, I chose psychology. And didn't take me very long to walk into a psychology class and realize, like, okay, this is what I want. This is what I want. And ironically, the subject we were studying, I'll never forget this, the subject we were studying when I knew, like, okay, this is what I want, is sleep. Because I was just so fascinated by the human brain. I just watched my mother go through what she had gone through, and just my own internal dialogue dealing with the abuse that I had dealt with. And then I'm in class and we're studying sleep and the different stages of sleep, REM sleep and whatever, different stages of sleep. And I was sitting there studying that, and I was realizing, wow, the human brain is unbelievably fascinating. Basically, every human being, every single day, hibernates for like 8 hours a day. I just thought, wow, that's crazy. Like, every human being hibernates for like 8 hours a day. Like, your brains are fascinating. And I remember being so intrigued and so fascinated and so excited that I thought, I'm in the right place. This is what I want to be doing. So it just makes me think, like, whatever it is you've got going on in your life, If it doesn't seem to be fitting you, like marine biology didn't fit me when I was 17 years old, just take a step back and think. Take the words from Tasha Smith, close your eyes and dream, and let what you dream about be your guide. The cool thing about regret is you can often change it. You can often do something to undo the thing that you did. For example, I moved to Texas. Let's say you don't love it. I've been here 20 years. You can move somewhere else. Like, I want to move to Hawaii. I want to move to Japan. I want to move. You can change your circumstances. But there are some choices that are permanent. There are some choices that are very, very difficult. Like, for example, parenting. Or more specifically, who you choose to co-parent with. It's very, very difficult when you realize, the person that I thought I married or the person that I thought I was having a child with is not the person that I knew at all. So what do you do in those circumstances? Because obviously you can't you can't change co-parent partners. You can't change the children that you had. Like, what do you do in those circumstances when it's like, I regret who I had children with or the circumstance I find myself in, but I still got to do this for the next, however many years. What do you do? Well, I'm going to go into that today because I think it's a really, really powerful thing. And I cannot tell you, like the majority of the time that I've been a practicing psychotherapist, my specialty or speciality, however you say that, has been working with couples. And I cannot tell you how many times a couple has come into my office and these people loathe one another. I'm talking like legitimate hatred in their language. And then you find out they have 2 kids that are like 7 and 4. And you're just like, wow, just like 7 years ago, you were so into each other enough that you laid down and made a baby. And you're just like, how do you do this? And the therapy becomes about co-parenting. And a little side note, like where the area where my office was, there was a family court. And oftentimes when people going through divorce, they would be mandated into therapy to help them deal with the way that they're co-parenting the children. And there was a judge in the area that would send a lot of these families to me. And this was a lot of the work that I did. And the therapy would often be becoming, how do you co-parent? And I'll use this word even though it's terrible, but how do you co-parent with someone that you hate? That became like the theme oftentimes. Like, how do you co-parent with a person you do not like and the person that has brought you pain and suffering? And oftentimes, I'm going to tell you guys the things that really, really matter and the things that really, really hit home. You have to be able to re-perceive your partner. Like, if you're having children with them, you have to learn how to get along with them simply because it's good for your child. Not because they deserve it, because quite frankly, maybe they don't deserve it. Maybe they did something during the marriage or as the marriage ended that meant, you don't deserve my kindness. You don't deserve my heart. You don't deserve my peace. You don't deserve me to be nice to you. But you have to be able to prioritize they are also the parent of your child, and you getting along with them is good for your children. It's good for your children's mental health. It's good for your children's long-term success. It's good for their confidence. It is measurably good for your children for you to perceive their parent, their other parent, in a positive way. And the other thing is to recognize, and this is probably the most powerful thing I can tell you, no matter what anybody has done, there is no such thing as someone that is all bad or all good. So if you must get along with this person for X number of years as you continue to raise a child or children that you created together, then you have to make sure that you are attending to the qualities of that person that make them good. That you are attending to the qualities of that person that make them a good person. That you are attending to the qualities of that person that are on the positive end. And remember, it's hard. Trust me, it's hard. But there really is no such thing as someone who is not good or someone who is all good. They don't exist. So if you can follow those things, then you can't change the decision you made that you regretted about the past, but you can change how that regretful decision will impact your future. I've been on an incredible professional journey, really for the last 15 years, I would say, but in a really crazy, surreal way in the last 5 or 6. And one of the people that I got to meet on this journey is a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk. Now, Gary Vaynerchuk, he is a very successful entrepreneur. He runs a business and he He like inspires entrepreneurs, and he does things with entrepreneurs, and he hosts events for entrepreneurs and all these things. He's a big, massive entrepreneur, often known as Gary V. If you don't know him, look up the name Gary V, and you'll see a bunch of stuff about him. I started following him 2015 or so, maybe. Way life twists and turns, I got invited to speak at one of his events. I got invited to speak at an event called VCon. And I was in the green room in VCon. I turn around, and there he is. And I wanted to talk to him because he made a video around like 2014 and 15 where he said he changed his entire life because he was 95% happy. And that video inspired me because at the time where I saw this video, I was about 95% happy. I had worked so hard to get a master's degree, and then I created a very large and successful psychotherapy practice, but I was not happy. There was something missing. I couldn't put my finger on what it was. I didn't know what I wanted to be doing, but there was something in my life missing. Matter of fact, as I retell this story, I realize it must have been before 2015. It must have been like 2012, somewhere in there. But anyway, I realized like there's something missing, and I didn't want to live my life 95% happy. And I went and talked to Gary Vee, and I thanked him for making that video. But it gets to the lesson that I want to share today about like, what do you do when you're ready to make a change? I'm going to share that today. And I mean, that's an incredibly powerful and important question. What do you do when you're ready to make a change? Because I saw that video, and I saw this guy, Gary Vee, didn't know who he was at the time, and he had made this like massive change in his life. He changed industries, he changed everything, and he just did all these different things that he talked about in this video. And he went all in on building this like social media platform. It was incredible because I realized I was in that same place. And at the time, I think I had one book out by then. I had begun speaking at conferences, but in a very small way. And then I was like, yeah, I think that's the missing thing. Like, I want to do more writing, and I want to speak more. I want to do more lecturing in my field. And then sure enough, it started to happen. I started writing more books. I started getting invited to speak more. It didn't take long where somebody invited me to speak, and it was the first time anybody ever paid me to speak. I remember the first time somebody paid me to speak, I made $800 speaking at a school event here, kind of local. And I remember going into the next year, I said to myself, my goal for next year is I want somebody to pay me to get on a plane and give a lecture. And then it happened. The first time that happened, I went to Minneapolis. And now I find myself, I mean, not every day is perfect for sure. And the entrepreneur journey is hard, and there's peaks and valleys, and there's ups and downs and all the things. But I'm not searching for that 95% anymore. Like, I have 100% alignment in what I'm doing. I have 100% alignment on who I'm doing it with. My team is amazing. Like, I'm like fully in on who I am, what I'm doing, who I'm doing it for, who I'm doing it with, and all because I like made a pivot. And I guess that would be my thought here. Like, if you even have a percentage of life which is like, I really wish that this thing could be better. I wish maybe I'm 80% happy, or maybe I'm whatever the percentage is. Like, just do it. Just like make the pivot. You're gonna suffer. I mean, this is a cliche. I know you've heard it before, but you're going to struggle. Like, that is a given. So you might as well struggle towards the thing that makes the struggle worthwhile, instead of struggling in a way that causes you harm. You're going to struggle, but that doesn't mean you're going to suffer. And I can honestly tell you, once I made that pivot, I started realizing I want to go all in, and I want to write more books, and I want to do more things. I don't want to just do clinical work. My whole life became different. So whatever your version of that is, get out there and do it. Get out there and be it. Have the courage to make a change, because honestly, that's the only thing you need. Thanks for being here. If you wouldn't mind doing me a super huge favor, I would love it if you would share this podcast with at least one person in your life that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And also, don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else you listen to your podcast. And also follow me on all of the social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky. You can search for my name, Elliott Connie, or at Elliott Speaks. That's my handle across all platforms. Can't wait to see you tomorrow.